It's the 27th of June 2024 and this is Newsfirst Primetime News coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo, bringing you the news for the Newsfirst team. I am Jayama Ratnayaka.
And I'm Piruni Karuna Ratna. Here are our top stories for tonight.
No authority to approve service extension, says the Constitutional Council. Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam retires. Controlling the President or suspending the Constitution is not the Supreme Court's purpose, says the bench that issued an order restricting the appointment of judges. Supreme Court issues order preventing the execution of a gazette which lifts the protected status of an area belonging to the Vedithalativu Reserve. President calls on Mahanayaka Theras of the Malwatu and Askiri chapters, explains Sri Lanka's economy. IMF eyes quick progress with private creditors. Teachers, principals and university non-academic staff continue trade union action. 8 houses damaged due to Ahaligoda landslide. 40 families evacuated to safety.
Your top story for tonight. Sanjay Rajaratnam has announced that he has now retired from the position of Attorney General. The President's recommendation to extend his service by 6 months was not approved by the Constitutional Council on 2 occasions.
Following the rejection of the President's recommendation to extend Sanjay Rajaratnam's service by a majority vote, the Constitutional Council reconvened last evening to reconsider the matter. The meeting began at around 6 p.m. at the Speaker's official residence and lasted for approximately 4 hours. A member of the Constitutional Council said it was decided the Council does not have the authority to approve an extension for the Attorney General after reaching the age of 60. Accordingly, the Constitutional Council's decision was communicated to the President last night via a letter. Justice Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa commented on the appointment of an Attorney General.
නීතිපතිවරයා පත් කිරීමේ බලය තින්නේ ජනාධිපතිතුමාට සහ ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක සභාවට. ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලන් තමයි තීරණය කරන්නේ අධිකරණ ඇමතිවරයා විදිහට මට ඒකේ කිසි වගකීමක් නැහැ.
The minister also responded to questions on the recent statement issued by the Judicial Service Association.
ඒ විදිහේ කැළඹීමක් උනේ නැහැ. මම පාර්ලිමේන්තු කරපු ප්‍රකාශය ගැන කීප දෙනෙක් කැළඹිලා තිබුණා. ඒක විනිසුරු වරුන් කැළඹීමක් නෙවෙයි. යම් යම් සිද්ධි වලට අදාළ 3-4 දෙනෙකුට සීමා වෙච්ච කාරණයක්. ඒ පිළිබඳව අධිකරණ සේවා කොමිෂන් සභාවෙන්ම පරීක්ෂණ පවත්වාගෙන යනවා.
The minister made these comments during an event in Galle. The Supreme Court emphasized that its purpose is not to control the President or suspend the Constitution. The announcement came while considering a request by Venerable Dambara Milathera and Professor Mahim Mendes to intervene in a petition that had been granted an interim injunction preventing the appointment of judges to the Supreme Court. The request was considered by a bench comprising Justices S. Durai Raja, Shiran Gunaratne and A.H.M.D. Nawaz. The bench noted that the interim order was issued after a thorough consideration of the presented arguments. The Supreme Court had previously issued an interim order on the 30th of April, barring the President and the Constitutional Council from appointing judges to the Supreme Court, following a petition filed by a lawyer as a concerned citizen. The petitioners said today that no party has opposed the modification or removal of this order. Deputy Solicitor General Kanishka De Silva, representing the Attorney General, stressed on the need for an expedited examination and resolution of the said petition. After consideration, the bench decided that the petitions should be reviewed promptly and set the hearing for July 25th. The bench also directed both parties to file any objections, counter-objections and written submissions regarding the petitions. Meanwhile, the intervening parties pointed out that several parliamentarians have claimed that the interim order issued by the Supreme Court interferes with the executive's power. The petition also said that statements made in Parliament by Ministers Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, Susil Premajayantha and MP Dayasiri Jayasekara have severely criticized the judiciary and the judicial Judicial Service Commission. President's counsels Upul Jayasuriya and Dilan Philip appeared for the petitioners, while President's counsels M.A. Sumandiran and K. Kanageshwaran represented the Constitutional Council.
The Supreme Court issued an order today preventing the enforcement of the Gazette notification issued by the Minister of Wildlife Pavitra Wanyarachi, which removed the protected status of a section of the Vidathalthiv Nature Reserve. The Supreme Court issued this order in response to two fundamental rights petitions filed by several environmental organizations.
The Vidathalthiv Nature Reserve, located in the Mampe West Divisional Secretariat of Mana, is a vital mangrove and bird sanctuary known for its rich biodiversity. On the 6th of May, the Minister of Wildlife, Pavitra Wanyarachi, issued a Gazette notification releasing 400 acres of this highly sensitive environmental zone from its protected status. Although the Gazette did not specify the reasons for this decision, Fisheries Minister Douglas Devanand later said that the land was released to facilitate shrimp and sea cucumber farming. However, this move faced immediate opposition from environmental organizations and activists. Two of these organizations subsequently filed fundamental rights petitions with the Supreme Court challenging the Gazette notification. The petitions were heard by a Supreme Court bench comprising Justices Priyantha Jayawardena, Shiran Gunaratne and Achala Wengapuli. The bench granted leave to proceed with the petitions and issued an interim order preventing the implementation of the Gazette notification until the conclusion of the case. The petitioners argued that removing a significant portion of the Vidathalthiv Nature Reserve from its protected status would cause substantial environmental harm. They highlighted potential damage to the aquatic ecosystem, the region's environmental balance, and the overall ecological system. Respondents named in the petitions include the Minister of Wildlife Pavitra Wanyarachi, Minister of Environment Ranil Wickramasinghe, and the Attorney General, among the others. Representing the petitioners, President's Counsel Sanjeeva Jayawardena, along with Attorney Neil Shantha Sirimanna, and a group of attorneys appeared in court.
The Samagi Janabalawegaya revealed that attempts are being made to implement a massive project that will not benefit the country. The SJB claims that the project can be executed in a way that maximizes contributions to the public while maintaining competitive pricing.
අදානි සමාගම ලංකාවේ විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලයට
Attempts are being made to ink an agreement where Adani will sell a unit of wind power to the CEB for 8.26 US cents. The cabinet, President Wickramasinghe and the Rajapaksas have approved a massive wind power project to be awarded to Adani without calling for tenders for a period of 20 years. The PUCSL had delayed approving this project. Despite this, yesterday, the tenders, which are called for a 50 megawatt wind power plant from Mana, were opened under a competitive bidding process, which is also accepted worldwide. An experienced Sri Lankan company will be selling a unit for 4.88 US cents. That's almost half the price offered by Adani, linked with Wijayasekara, Wickramasinghe and Rajapaksa. Another firm has also put forward similar prices. These are competitive tenders and have been put forward by experienced firms that possess the expertise. There is corruption linked to the government's attempt to buy a unit of wind power from Adani's 480 megawatt plant for 8.26 US cents.
මේ ආණ්ඩුව ගන්න පියවර නිසැක ලෙසම දූෂිතයි.
Former Minister Kabir Hashim also commented on the matter.
අපි කියන්නේ නෑ මේක කරන්න එපායි කියලා. අපි කියන්නේ අදානි සමාගම
We are not opposing this. Adani must have the expertise that includes international technology. However, it is wrong to ink agreements that will loot the money in the country. These need to stop, and that is our position. They are offering 8 US cents while another offers for half that amount. Adani plans to remain here for 25 years. It will cost the country $2 billion. Our ISBs alone are $14 billion. If we can save money from projects like this, we can also service the debt.
අර ණය ටික ගෙවා ගැනීමේ ප්‍රවණතාවය වැඩි කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ නිසා තමයි අපි මේක දිගටම කිව්වේ.
The International Monetary Fund expressed confidence that Sri Lanka will soon reach agreements with commercial creditors, including bondholders, just as it has successfully done with bilateral debt restructuring. Yesterday, Sri Lanka reached agreements with the Official Creditor Committee and the Exim Bank of China to restructure nearly $10 billion in bilateral debt.
Out of Sri Lanka's foreign debt exceeding $35 billion, the official creditor committee, co-chaired by India, Japan and France, agreed to restructure $5.8 billion during discussions in Paris. In addition to the co-chair countries, the official creditor committee includes the United States, Australia, Austria, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Germany, Korea, the Netherlands, Spain, Russia, Sweden and the United Kingdom. China is not part of the official creditor committee. Although they participated as observers in the discussion, the restructuring of debt provided by the China Exim Bank was agreed upon separately. Consequently, China agreed yesterday to restructure $4.2 billion of debt. How will the debt repayments be structured following this agreement? The president provided an initial explanation of this during the address to the nation yesterday.
මේකතාවයන් සමග විදේශ රටවල සියලු දෙපාර්ශ්වික ණයවාරික ගෙවීම 2028 වසර දක්වා කල් දමා ගැනීමට අපට හැකි වේවි. ඉන්පසු සහනදායි කොන්දේසි මත සියලු ණය ගෙවා අවසන් කරන්නට 2043 දක්වා දිගු කාලයක් ලබා ගන්නටත් අපට අවස්ථාව ලැබේ. 2023 වසරේ අප දේශීය ණය ප්‍රතිවගත කරන කටයුතු අවසන් කළා. දැන් විදේශීය රටවල දෙපාර්ශ්වික ණය ප්‍රතිවගත කරන කටයුතු සාර්ථකව අවසන් කර ගැනීමට අපට හැකි වී තියෙනවා. ඊළඟට අපට තියෙන්නේ විදේශීය බැඳුම්කර හිමියන්ද ඇතුළත් වාණිජ්‍ය ණය හිමියන් සමග එකඟතාවයකට එළඹීම. මේ මාර්ගයෙන් ඉදිරියට යාමෙන් අපට මේ එකඟතාවය ඇති කර ගන්න පුළුවන්. මේ පිළිබඳ සාකච්ඡා අප අඛණ්ඩව පවත්වාගෙන යනවා.
The official creditor committee for Sri Lanka has announced that it expects Sri Lankan authorities will continue to engage with their private creditors to find as soon as possible an agreement on terms at least as favorable as the terms offered by the OCC. These engagements will ensure that the overall debt treatment granted to Sri Lanka is consistent with the IMF program parameters. The OCC statement was issued late yesterday following the Sri Lankan government's announcement that a memorandum of understanding was inked in Paris, France between Sri Lankan authorities and the OCC, co-chaired by France, Japan and India. It added that since the official creditor committee and Sri Lanka agreed on the main parameters of a debt treatment consistent with those of the extended fund facility arrangement between Sri Lanka and the IMF on the 23rd of November 2023, the OCC and Sri Lanka furthered discussions in order to finalize the agreement in a memorandum of understanding. The OCC also continued to engage extensively with the Sri Lankan authorities, the IMF and the World Bank, as well as China and Sri Lanka's private creditors, in order to ensure comparability of treatment. Yesterday, the OCC and Sri Lanka finalized the MOU based on the main parameters of the debt treatment agreed in November 2023. The progress on the MOU had enabled the IMF staff to present the IMF Executive Board the second review of Sri Lanka's EFF arrangement and thus opened the way for approval of the third disbursement under the arrangement. The OCC commends the Sri Lankan authorities for their continuous efforts in implementing the reforms necessary for their country's return to a sustainable path. The OCC now looks forward to receiving from Sri Lanka all information necessary for the OCC to ensure compatibility of treatment. The International Monetary Fund has welcomed the announcement of Sri Lanka's finalization of its debt agreements with its major official creditors. Peter Brewer, Senior Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, said the finalization of the debt agreements is a key milestone and takes Sri Lanka one step closer towards completing its debt restructuring and restoring debt sustainability. He said the IMF hopes that there will be a swift progress on reaching agreements with external private creditors in the near future. India said that they will continue to support Sri Lanka's economic recovery, including by promoting long-term investments in the country's key economic sectors. The Indian External Affairs Ministry in a statement said that the official creditor committee for Sri Lanka signing the Memorandum of Understanding on debt restructuring yesterday is a milestone that demonstrates the strong progress made by Sri Lanka in stabilizing its economy and moving towards reform and growth. The Indian External Affairs Ministry said that as one of the co-chairs of the OCC, along with France and Japan, India has been steadfast in its commitment to the stabilization, recovery and growth of the Sri Lankan economy. This was also demonstrated by India's unprecedented financial support of $4 billion to Sri Lanka. India was also the first creditor nation to convey financing assurances to the IMF, which paved the way for Sri Lanka to secure the IMF program. China says that it stands ready to work with relevant countries and international financial institutions to support Sri Lanka in realizing debt sustainability. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning, speaking to reporters in Beijing, said the Export-Import Bank of China was the first to tentatively agree with Sri Lanka on debt treatment, which has been crucial for Sri Lanka to advance fiscal reform with further support for international creditors. Japan has welcomed the agreement reached between Sri Lanka and the Official Creditor Committee, co-chaired by India, Japan and France, on the Memorandum of Understanding of Debt Restructuring for Sri Lanka. Japan has played a leading role in the process of debt restructuring for Sri Lanka, including by launching the OCC in April 2023, which is the first framework to coordinate between Paris Club countries and non-Paris Club countries on debt restructuring for middle-income countries. Japan's Finance Minister Suzuki Shinichi said that it is a landmark achievement to finalize the MOU with Sri Lanka under this framework and hopes that this could be a leading case for future debt restructuring for middle-income countries. Japan expects Sri Lanka to implement debt restructuring with other official bilateral creditors outside of the OCC and private creditors in a transparent and comparable manner.
Dr. Harshadi Silva pointed out that agreeing to the current proposal put forth by the Committee of International Sovereign Bondholders for debt restructuring would result in a significant loss.
අපිට තියෙන මූලික ගැටලුව අපි සන්තෝෂ වුණාට ද්විපාර්ශ්වික නාහිමියන්ගේ ඒ නිල රාජ්‍ය සමග එකඟතාවයට පැමිණුණාට අපි දැඩිව විරුද්ධ වෙනවා දැනට.
Our fundamental issue is that while we were pleased with the bilateral creditors agreeing with the government, we are strongly opposed to the ongoing discussions with commercial creditors. The proposal put forward by the commercial creditors, or in this case the international bondholders, is extremely detrimental to the country. If we agree to restructure the debt through mechanisms like MLB macro bonds, the agreement could extend until 2040. Any agreement with international commercial creditors should genuinely benefit the country. According to the latest IMF staff report, our GDP is expected to reach 40 trillion by 2027. This figure is significant because the international bondholders' proposal is based on measuring our GDP in dollars and determining whether it meets certain benchmarks. The decision on the haircut or reduction of principal will be based on whether our GDP is higher or lower than these benchmarks. The government initially said they would cut 50%, then 30%, and now they expect 28%. However, this 28% reduction would effectively take place from 2028 onwards. Based on their proposal, if our GDP is only $84.2 billion by 2027, the cut would be applied. If it's higher, the reduction would be gradually less. If our GDP exceeds $96 billion by 2027, the cut could reduce from 28% to as low as 7.3%. According to the IMF report, if our GDP reaches 40 trillion by 2027, with an annual exchange rate depreciation of 5%, the rupee value would be 365 per dollar, equating to a GDP of $109 billion. With a 7% depreciation, the rupee would be 385 per dollar and GDP would be $103 billion. With a 10% depreciation, the rupee would be 419 per dollar, reducing GDP to 96 billion. In any case, the principal reduction would decrease from 28% to 7%. Agreeing to such a significant reduction knowingly is extremely harmful to Sri Lanka.
128 ඉඳලා 107ට අඩු වෙනවා. ඉතින් මේ දැනම මෙවැනි විශාල කපාහැරීම අඩු කිරීමකට එකඟ වීම අතිශයින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට අහිතකරයි.
Sri Lankan Minister Jeevan Thonnaman, speaking to international media on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in China, said Sri Lanka has made reforms that lead to a stable economic policy. He also said that monetary benefits in terms of a loan or grant assistance must entail transparency and accountability.
I think we have to understand that Sri Lanka has been to the IMF close to 16-17 times, and we've never really completed that restructure program, nor have we followed up with the IMF's program. But this is one of the first, and this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, where we've actually taken reforms that lead to stable economic policy, and where we are able to maintain fiscal sustainability. Because realistically, all this while, Sri Lanka was trying to be a populist state when we are not. We did not have enough revenues being generated by the state-owned enterprises. We did not have, just to give you a bit of perspective, we're a population of 22 million people. We only need 400,000 government servants, but we have 1.5 million. And all that is being paid for by the taxpayers. So, we needed to isolate politics from our fiscal policies. Okay. And that's exactly what we did. And this debt restructuring, especially, I think about, if I'm not mistaken, $4.2 billion with China.
Yes, that's
and
right.
about roughly $5.8 billion with the Paris Club and other creditors. To be very honest, I think the fact that we were able to achieve this is simply because of the creditors' confidence on Sri Lanka's pathway to recovery. Mm-hmm. And we would not have been able to do that if it wasn't for all our fiscal.
But at the same time, investments from China are continuing to pour in, including a multi-billion-dollar oil project just last year, and with China's Belt and Road Initiative. Some observers say this could pose a debt trap. Do you agree? I mean, and you coming here to the World Economic Forum to try to get more investments, would that lead to even more debt?
See, I'm of the view at the end of the day, when there is monetary benefit that is coming to the country in terms of a loan or in terms of grant assistance, whatever it is, due diligence must be done. There needs to be transparency, there needs to be accountability. And we, as Sri Lankans, do not want to get involved in geopolitics. We are the center of it. But right now, I think it's high time we start focusing on ourselves as a country as opposed to, pitting one against another.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe called on the Mahanayaka Theros of the Asgiri and Malwatu chapters of the Siam sect in Kandy. The president briefed the Mahanayaka Theros on the progress achieved in restructuring debt.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe visited the historic temple of the sacred Tooth Relic in Kandy. During his visit, the president paid homage to the sacred Tooth Relic and received blessings. During his visit, the president inspected statues of a king and queen crafted by artist Atula Herath using artificial intelligence at the temple premises. The president engaged in cordial conversation with the people. The president then visited the Malwatu Mahaviharaya, where he received blessings from the Mahanayaka of the Malwatu chapter, the most venerable Tibbatuwave Sri Sumangala Thera. Thereafter, the president visited the Asgiri Mahaviharaya and called on the Mahanayaka of the Asgiri chapter of the Siam sect, the most venerable Varakagoda Sri Gnanaratana Thera.
ඒක සාර්ථක කරලා තියෙන්නේ මොකද කිසි කාලයක අපි මංකොලොත් අපේ නම්වත් ආරක්ෂා කරන්න මිනිස්ත්‍රාත් ජනතාවට සහනයක් දෙන්න ඕනේ. ඒ නිසා මේ වැඩ කටයුතු කරලා අපිට පුළුවන් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒකට විශේෂයෙන්ම විදේශ රටවල් වලින් අපිට ආදාන උපකාර ලැබුණා. ආසියාවේ ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් ඉන්දියාවේ මුදල් ජපානයේ චීනයේ ඒ වගේම ඇමරිකාවල් යුරෝපීය සංගම් වල අපිට සහයෝගය දෙනවා. ඒක අපි මහා බ්‍රිතාන්‍යයත් ඒක අපි අගය කරනවා. දැන් අපිට තියෙන්නේ මෙතනින් ඉදිරියට යන්න. අපි මේ විදිහටම ආර්ථිකය ගෙනිච්චොත් තව අවුරුදු 15 ඊට වඩා දරුණු වෙනවා අපිට ගොඩ එන්න බැරි වෙනවා. ඒකයි මම ආර්ථික පරිවර්තන කෙටුමකට ගෙනාවේ සම්මත කරන්න කියලා. අපි දැන් අපනයන ආර්ථිකයකට යන්නේ.
The president then visited the Katukale Selva Vinayagar Hindu Kovil in Kandy and obtained blessings. Thereafter, the president visited the Mira Makka Mosque in Kandy.
යම්කිසි වැරද්දක් කරන අවස්ථාවකදී මෑණියන් අම්මා කෙනෙක් මොකද්ද කරන්නේ ඒ වැරද්ද පවා හිතට ගන්න නැතුව තමාගේ දුවදරුවන් කරන වැරද්ද නිවැරදි කිරීම සඳහා නොයෙකුත් අවස්ථාවලදී මුටි බැට දීලා හරි වැරද්ද නිවැරදි කරන්න බලනවා. සියලු අතිම්ම යාන්ත්‍රික මට්ටමන් සියල්ලම කඩා වැටෙන මොහොතේදී මව් පක්ෂය එනම් කියන මෑණියන් කියන ඒ පක්ෂයේ තමාගේ තනතුර දරාගෙන තමාගේ වගකීම තමා සතු අරගෙන අප අපගේ වර්තමාන ජනාධිපති අතිගරු රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඒ දුවදරුවන්ගේ වැඩ කටයුතු පවා හිතට ගන්න නැතුව රට ගොඩ නැගීම සඳහා පෙරටු කරගෙන ඔබතුමා කරපු සේවාව ගැන අත වශයෙන්ම වර්ධාගනී පූර්ව ස්තුතිය මුස්ලිම් ජනතාව හැටියට අප සියලු දෙනා මේ අවස්ථාවේ පුද කර සිටිනවා.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa has taken wing to China.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa has embarked on a trip to China. According to the General Secretary of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Attorney at Law Sagar Karyavasam, the former president received a special invitation from the Chinese government. Accompanying him are 4 other personnel and they are scheduled to visit China for a duration of 4 days. The leader of the opposition criticized the president's recent statements on debt restructuring, describing them as problematic. He was speaking at the opening of a smart classroom at Madurawala Remuna Mahavidyalaya in Kalutara.
It has come to light that we now have a pause until 2028, with payments resuming thereafter. Some may view this positively, but I must emphasize that the IMF's March 2023 debt sustainability analysis underscores the need to resume payments from 2033. Why the decision to begin payments in 2028 instead of aiming for the 2033 goal outlined in the IMF report? This raises concerns that require addressing. Moreover, despite claims to the contrary, our country's debt restructuring process, supposedly completed faster than any other, remains incomplete. The people were misled. These issues continue to affect our part to restructure our debt.
තවමත් අපේ ණය ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහගත කරන ක්‍රියාදාමය අවසන් නැහැ. සම්පූර්ණ නැහැ.
This is the stance of the Freedom People's Congress.
There has been no mention of a haircut, debt reduction or interest rate cuts. This did not refer to a reduction of USD 11 billion in debt, but an extension of servicing that debt. The president is playing the role of a fake lover who makes various false promises. The funds of the bankrupt state are being used for nationwide propaganda.
SLPP's Johnston Fernando commented on the president's special statement.
ජාතිය මතනේ එක වරදක් නෙමෙයි ජනාධිපතිවරයෙක්ට කරන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක්. ජනාධිපතිවරු ඉතිහාසයේ ජාතිය අමතලාදී. ඉතින් ඒක ජනාධිපතිතුමාට තියෙන අයිතියක්. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ රට සුගත මුගත වෙලා ඔක්කොම වෙලා ඉවරයි. ඔය තිබුණාට වැඩිය හොඳයිනේ නේද? දැන් රටේ ජනතාව ඉල්ලුවේ අපි වෙනස් කරලා අලුත් ජනාධිපති කෙනෙක් පත් කරන්න කියලානේ. ඉතින් රටේ ජනතාව ඉල්ලපු ජනාධිපතිතුමා අපි පත් කළා දුන්නේ. දිගටම ඉල්ලයි දන්නේ මේ ජනාධිපතිතුමා. ජනතාව ඉල්ලයි. දැන් තිබුච්ච එච්චර මේකකුත් නැහැ නේද? නේද? ජනතාව හිතුවොත් හරි නිශ්ශබ්දයිනේ. ඉඳලා හිටලානේ කරන්නේ. කොහොමද ඉල්ලලා ඉන්නේ? නැත්තම් එහෙම නැත්තම් පාරට බැලලා බහැලා ඉන්න බෑ දවල් කාලේ.
This is a position of Sunil Handurnetti.
A large portion of the external debt is linked to the ISBs. Most of these ISBs were obtained during the Ranil Wickremesinghe administration, that is the government of good governance. Today the arrears is equal to that amount. So who brought about disgrace to the country? Those who burdened the country with debt are saying they reduced it by a little amount. They are telling the people to give the power to those who brought about that debt burden.
The UNP General Secretary also commented on the matter.
When the country was in crisis, those who criticized now fled. The president explained to the people on the efforts that were taken to uplift the country and provide a livable environment to them. He also emphasized on how to take forward this victory.
This is what the SJB had to say.
The good news was that a document would be signed. However, the people were expecting a debt haircut. There is an ability to do so. If we can achieve a 50% haircut, we can move forward. This is not for the president to gain election mileage, but for the country's future. We urge Ranil Wickremesinghe not to ink agreements that are not beneficial to the country.
The Batikla District Convention on the Ceylon Teachers Union took place under the auspices of National People's Power leader Andra Kumara Disanayaka.
Today there is a fervent call for change, driven by an upcoming decisive presidential election aimed at bringing transformation. The question remains, can Ranil Wickremesinghe be the catalyst for this change? His career spans for over 40 years, and is he a different leader? These are rusty leaders. The SLPP is yet to officially announce their backing to Ranil Wickremesinghe. Mahinda Rajapaksa and Basil Rajapaksa say no decision has been reached. In contrast, Mahinda Ananda has thrown his support behind Ranil. Lohan Ratwata and Prasanna Ranatunge have also pledged their allegiance alongside Nimal Lanza and Prasanna Ranavira. But why back Ranil? In Batiklo, after Pilyan's decision, the call remains for change. However, it's clear that true change requires new leadership. Though that is the aspiration of the people, Ranil cannot deliver. Can Sajid do it? There is no point in talking about him. His party chairman now speaks about him.
The Election Commission will be empowered to proclaim the date for the presidential election in 20 days.
School activities came to a halt due to the absence of the teachers and principals as their members of their union alliance called in sick. However, the Ministry of Education clarified that all government schools operated as usual today.
Representatives from over 30 teacher principal unions staged a protest in Colombo Fort yesterday, urging an immediate resolution to the salary disparity issue. Police initially used water cannons followed by tear gas to disperse the protesters. Due to ongoing teacher protests, school activities have been significantly disrupted.
බබාව එකගෙන ආවා ඉස්කෝලේ තියයි කියලා ඉතින් ළමයි කවුරුත් නැහැ ඉතින් මෙයා දාලා යන්නත් බෑ මං එකගෙන යනවා ඉතින්
එක ළමයෙක් ආවා එච්චරයි ඒ ළමයා දැන් ඉස්කෝලේ දැම්මා ඉස්කෝලේ කවුරුත්ම හිටියේ නෑ මම එනකොටත් මම දවස් ඉතින් 20 30ක් විතර අරන් එන වාහනවල ඉතින් අද ඊයේ දවස් දෙකේම ළමයි 5 දිනක් තමයි ආවේ.
Officials from the Ceylon Teachers Union visited the Colombo Eye Hospital to check on members hospitalized after the incident.
වලස් මුල්ලෙන් ආපු එක ගුරුවරයෙක්ගේ ඇහැට අධිපීඩක ජල ප්‍රහාරයක් එල්ල වෙලා ඔහුට ශල්‍ය කර්මයක් කළා මේ වෙනකොට තවමත් වෙනීම නැහැ. තවත් ශල්‍ය කර්මයක් කරන්න නියමිතව තියෙනවා. තවත් ගුරුවරයෙක්ගේ ඇස් දෙකටම හානි වුණා මේ ජල ප්‍රහාරයෙන්.
ආණ්ඩුව එල්ල කරපු ප්‍රහාරයත් එක්ක ගුරුවරු 50කට අධික පිරිසක් මේ වෙනකොට අනතුරට ලක් වෙලා තියෙනවා. විවිධ ස්ථාන වලින් ප්‍රතිකාර ලබාගෙන තියෙනවා. ඉතින් අපි මේකට අපේ ප්‍රතිචාරය සූදානම් කරමින් ඉන්නේ.
The Association of Education Professionals submitted a memorandum today at the United Nations office in Colombo.
We have formally requested UN intervention against police actions targeting peaceful demonstrations. We as teachers and principals stand firm against repression and will take stronger action in the future.
මැදිහත් වෙන්න අපි ගුරු විදුහල්පතිවරු මර්ධනයට බය නැහැ. අපි මීට වඩා දැඩි වූ වෘත්තීය ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ඉදිරියේදී ලබා ගන්නවා.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe addressed teacher concerns during his visit to Kandy.
In 2022, teachers experienced salary increases ranging from 3,000 to 17,000 rupees. On average, this equates to around 6,000 to 7,000. Additionally, some warned me against providing the rupees 10,000 due to salary increases.
කරන්න පුළුවන් මෙච්චරයි කියලා කියනවා
අපි කිව්වයි ඒක පිළිගන්නේ නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන්නේ එයාගේ ඉස්සෙල්ලා ගන්න.
We made it clear, but it's not accepted. The issue is not with the teachers, but with the teacher unions. Other groups are also making similar demands. These individuals receive the raise first, so it should apply to everyone. We have formed a committee to address these matters starting from 2025. We must adhere to budgetary constraints as agreed upon.
මේ ටික ලබලා දෙන්න ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ. කොහොමද මේ ගිවිසුම් අනුවත් අපිට වියදම් කරන සීමාවක් තියෙනවනේ.
දැන් ඊයේම මේගොල්ලෝ කොටුවට ගෙනවා. අර ඒ හොඳ පණිවිඩය දෙන දවසේ ඇත්තට බැලුවේ නායක හමුදුරනේ ගැටුමක් ඇති කරගෙන මොකක් හරි දෙයක් කරගන්න තමයි ඊයේ උත්සාහ කරේ. ඊයේම කරේ ඒකම තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ ලොකුම සෙනග ඊයේ ගෙනාවා.
මේ වැටුප් විෂමතා සියල්ල විසඳීම සඳහා
An expert committee has been established to resolve salary disparities comprehensively. This committee will address all grievances regarding current salaries, ensuring provisions are made in the 2025 budget. Regardless of the administration, this issue must be tackled. Honoring good teachers who lovingly guide children is not a sin. As Acting Minister of Education, I humbly appeal to all teachers to return to work tomorrow and dedicate themselves to guiding our nation's children with care.
මග පෙන්වීම නිවැරදිව කිරීම සඳහා කැපවෙන ලෙස ඊටම කාරුණිකව ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
Every child deserves a healthy foundation. Beherayaya Junior College received a new water purification system guaranteeing clean drinking water for its students, the future leaders of tomorrow, with healthy minds and bodies ready to learn.
Eight houses have been damaged due to a landslide in Uduakanda in the Uduaka village in Ahaliyagoda.
Police said the residents had already been evacuated when the landslide occurred this afternoon. As a result, no one was injured in the landslide. Police said that 40 families in the Udavaka village were moved to safer areas this afternoon due to the risk of landslides.
Colombo High Court Judge Sujivani Sankar today dismissed a revision application filed by Venerable Thiniyavala Palitathero seeking to annul an order issued by the Colombo Fort Chief Magistrate where a private plaint filed by the Venerable Thero was dismissed.
Venerable Thiniyavala Palitathera had filed a private plaint against former Secretary to the President Lalit Veeratunga and former Governor of the Central Bank Ajit Niwad Cabral. The Colombo High Court held that the order issued by the Fort Chief Magistrate was legal and proper and stressed that therefore there is no need to intervene in the order of the Chief Magistrate to release the former Secretary to the President and the former Governor of the Central Bank from all charges in the private plaint. The Thera had filed the private plaint citing that the former Secretary to the President and the former Governor of the Central Bank had paid a sum of $6.5 million to a Pakistani national named Imam Suberi to uplift the image of Sri Lanka without any proper approvals. The Fort Chief Magistrate at the time, Tilina Gamage, dismissed the private plaint and released both the accused from all charges. The complaint was represented by President's Counsel Maitri Gunaratne, while the accused were represented by President's Counsel Sampath Mendes.
Newsfirst with the people.
The first Sri Lanka Strategic Trade Forum was held in Colombo.
The US Embassy in Colombo, in partnership with the Sri Lanka Department of Import and Export Control, launched the first Sri Lanka Strategic Trade Forum. Trade regulators from Malaysia, the Philippines and Singapore showcased their national strategies for overseeing the trade and transshipment of strategic items. These items are any dual-use goods or technologies that can be used for both commercial and military applications and play a vital role in advancing innovation across various sectors, including software development, aviation, medicine and sanitation. US Ambassador Julie Chung emphasized that the United States works together with partners to cultivate trading environments that support legitimate operations and restrict illegal activities so that countries can not only foster economic growth but also develop the competitive edge with the global marketplace. The forum also featured insights from Singapore's Centre for Trade Excellence and the US Department of Commerce as well as Sri Lankan experts. The program was funded by the US Department of State's Export Control and Border Security Program. The Export Control and Border Security Program collaborates globally with government and industry partners to strengthen strategic trade management, including legal frameworks, licensing, customs enforcement and border security. In Sri Lanka, the Export Control and Border Security Program contributes over $500,000 annually to support training, technical assistance, equipment and international exchanges.
Reports suggest that AirAsia Consulting is believed to be one of the final 3 bidders aiming to acquire SriLankan Airlines.
The Newsfirst Finance Report.
International media reported that Capital A. Berhad's consulting unit, AirAsia, is believed to be one of the final 3 bidders in the run to acquire SriLankan Airlines. The company is believed to be running up against 2 Sri Lankan business giants, a consortium of Sirasa Technologies, Supreme Global Holdings, and Qatar's MBS Investment, and one of Sri Lanka's largest conglomerate, Helis PLC. According to reports, the Sri Lankan government had selected the 3 companies as the final bidders shares in May. It added that the privatization deal for SriLankan Airlines was supposed to be completed by the end of this month, but the process is believed to have been delayed with no exact completion date currently. SriLankan Airlines is the flag carrier of Sri Lanka. In a bid to reduce losses that the airline has been incurring, the Sri Lankan government decided to privatize the carrier by selling its shares to interested parties under a $2.9 billion International Monetary Fund program. Sri Lankan Airlines, which is facing tough competition from its neighbouring India-based carriers, has an all-Airbus fleet comprising of 12 wide-body A330 and 12 narrow-body A320 and A321 family aircraft.
The Newsfirst Finance Report.
A presentation on genomics and cancer conducted by Dr. Mahendra Pereira was held in Colombo yesterday.
Focusing on groundbreaking investigations and research in the field of genomics and its impact on cancer treatment and detection, Dr. Mahendra Pereira conducted a presentation on genomics and cancer in Colombo yesterday.
When we really want to establish a diagnosis or nature of the tumor, we actually look into histopathology, which is number one. So that is the standard human HC staining. Number two, when you cannot come into concept, 80% of the testing is done pathologically proven. And then when we want to go beyond that, you actually look for the assistance of the IHC. And that's only about 20%. And there's a small fraction right at the top, molecular profiling.
Experts in the field of genomics also shared their insights and findings during the session.
The inaugural session of the CMA Sri Lanka SME Development Summit 2024 took place in Colombo.
SMEs are everywhere and they significantly contribute to the social economy and they have the potential to transform them. And some of the Sri Lanka's fastest growing sectors such as tourism, high value agriculture, information technology, business process outsourcing are mostly MSMEs. So they have the power to drive growth, diversify exports, develop global skills, generate employment, alleviate geographical and societal disparities, and make Sri Lanka as a country resilient, inclusive, and competitive. They have been hit hardest by a series, the spate of crises, unfortunately, and there are structural issues that inhibit them from growing.
The ADB country director for Sri Lanka was speaking at the inaugural session of the CMA Sri Lanka SME Development Summit 2024.
The 3-day search and rescue training for civil and military personnel concluded in Kitulgala today.
The 3-day swift water search and rescue training organized by Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management got underway for the 3rd day in Kitulgala. The training included various techniques to rescue flood victims and also ensure the safety of fellow search and rescue operators. Civil and military personnel were trained under this training program by international trainers of the Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management. The event was attended by the Director General Ground Operations of Sri Lanka Air Force, Air Vice Marshal C. Vikramaratne, Director General of the Disaster Management Centre, Retired Major General Uday Herath, the Country Director of the Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management, Retired Group Captain Firzan Hashim, the Head Coach of International Search and Rescue of the Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management, Huang Chan Yuan.
If you look at the force of nature, if not the force that is created by nature, we need that. There is no life, there is no environment without that. Whether it is climate change, whether it is human induced, that will be the future that we will be facing. But with the force of nature, what you learned during this 3 days plus and the previous is how the nature also helps us to rescue people, to take care of people.
In Sri Lanka, where monsoons and floods pose recurring threats to our communities, the importance of such training cannot be overstated. It is through initiatives like this that we empower respondents to act swiftly, decisively, and safely in times of crisis. The skills acquired on technical rope lifelines that can make difference between life and death. I appreciate all participants for your dedication and perseverance throughout this course.
So very recent past southwest monsoon, as a first responders, all the tri-forces and even the police, they did a commendable service. With that, compared to 16 and 17, the 24 civil and military personnel who qualified today with higher skill levels in international swiftwater search and rescue is a testament of our commitment to a safer Sri Lanka.
The training session was followed by a certificate award ceremony. Led by a top general vowing to restore democracy, armored vehicles rammed the doors of Bolivia's government palace yesterday in what the president called a coup attempt, then quickly retreated, the latest crisis in the South American country facing a political battle and an economic crisis. Within hours, the nation of 12 million people saw a rapidly moving scenario in which the troops seemed to take control of the government. He vowed to stand firm and named a new army commander who immediately ordered the troops to stand down. Soon the soldiers pulled back, along with a line of military vehicles, ending the rebellion after just 3 hours. Hundreds of the president's supporters then rushed the square outside the palace, waving Bolivian flags, singing the national anthem and cheering. The soldiers' retreat was followed by the arrest of the army chief after the Attorney General opened an investigation. Palestinians in Lebanon have watched Israel's assault on Gaza with simmering anger and are now facing the prospect of a similar fate if Israel wages an all-out war against the Lebanese group Hezbollah. Hezbollah began engaging Israel almost immediately after the latter began its war on Gaza, which has killed more than 37,000 people and uprooted almost the entire population. The Lebanese group has repeatedly said it would stop its attacks on Israel once a ceasefire took hold in Gaza and Israel stopped its bombardment on the people living there. Israel's assault followed a Hamas-led surprise attack on Israeli communities and military outposts on the 7th of October, in which 1,139 people were killed and 250 taken captive.
South Africa will play in their first ever ICC Men's T20 World Cup final after beating Afghanistan by 9 wickets in Trinidad.
A bowling performance and calm from the top order has secured South Africa's ticket for the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2024 final, defeating Afghanistan in the first semi-final in Trinidad. Bowling Afghanistan out for just 56, South Africa held their straps early by claiming 8 wickets inside the first 10 overs of the innings. It's the first time a team has bowled out the opposition for under 100 in a Men's T20 World Cup semi-final. Chasing just 57, calm from the South Africa's top order forced Afghanistan's hand in deploying Rashid Khan inside the power play. Despite the early wicket of Quinton de Kock, Reza Hendricks and Aiden Makram extinguished any Afghan threat to chase down the target inside 9 overs.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight.
Thank you for watching. Good night.